Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order with a reminder that the actions taken at this table will focus on our students and their achievement. I also would like to welcome Susan Lance to the board table. She is filling the position vacated by Eric Giddens when he was elected to Senate District 30. So for that, to the Iowa Senate. So welcome. We're glad to have you here. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you.
Moving on, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. That we do have one change. Adrian or Dr. Talbot handed out a new HR report, so that's in front of you. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Susie Hines. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Jenny Leeper. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on now to public comment. Mr. Wyckoff, would you step up to the mic, please?
Good evening. Larry Wyckoff, 4241 East Park Road, the great city of Cedar Falls. Advocate for the people of Cedar Falls. In the last couple of months, we've either had visitors here in support of the new high school, or people writing into the Courier Sunday yesterday, high-standing positions, acknowledging that they think that we need a new high school. Well, I'm here tonight as a common sense citizen that knows where money comes from, and I'm telling you, we can't afford another item on the budget for households. When my parents moved here in '63, my dad contacted Elmer Spear, and he had a blueprint for how our two-story, three-bedroom, one double-car garage was going to look. And when I went over to the site, he showed me that this one spot on this pole was going to be where our second floor was going to be. And I said, how are we going to get up there? It's all according to plan, Larry. Just, I'll take care of it. So that's what plans are for. And last Monday at the city council meeting, a lady got up and talked vigorously about how the traffic pattern at the new elementary school is discombobulated. And I went out there, Eric Road, Arbor, there's only two ways to get in. And like she said, there's no way to get out but through Arbor and Eric Road. And that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping that you will prevent by having studies done before a new high school is built. Vote no the 25th of June, please.
Moving on. Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Mr. Oltorf, please. Olthoff, sorry. I apologize.
Thank you. My name's Ed Olthoff, 1310 West 7th in Cedar Falls. I have a copy of the board, or the audit from 2016, June 30, 2016. It's the best one I could find. And what I want to say is that this portrays history. It's a little dated, but it's history, it's reality. This kind of a document here, the plan, is speculative. I want to read some reality. 2016. Revenues for the high school or the school district. Property tax, 21 million, this is round numbers. Sales tax, 4, state, 33 million, feds, 3 million, total of 60. Your expenditures were 60 million. Good, you balanced the budget. I go further in this report, page 60, 61. 2015, $1 million deficit. 2014, $5 million deficit. 2013, $4 million deficit. 2012, $3 million deficit. 2011, $12 million deficit. 2010, $8 million deficit. 2009, $3 million surplus. 08, $1 million deficit. 07, $3 million surplus. That's like 28 million over the past 10 years, 2.8 per year million in the deficit. Does the Cedar Falls School have difficulty balancing their budgets? I see nothing but red flags here. Liabilities, same report. Page 38, $22 million bond with $7 million interest. That's a liability. Page 15, a $32 million proposed bond for the Aldridge School, another liability. Now we're $60 million. The IPERS pension, you have a liability of $23 million with the IPERS pension at 7.5% discount rate. If it goes up to down to 6.5, you're at $40 million. And then some OPED thing for $1 million. Page 17, your net assets are $76 million, your net capitals. In the housing market, you're underwater. Now we're going for a $70 million bond. In the business world, I don't know who rates your bonds, but in the business world, that's junk. My recommendation, take this project and shelf it. You're not ready for it. You haven't got the money for it. I'd like to see the board do fiscal responsibility, balance your budget for 10 years. And in 10 years, you're going to have that $22 million bond paid off. Maybe you can handle another one then. I don't want to see it done before that. Now, I'm not a disgruntled property owner because I don't own property in Cedar Falls.
Thank you, Mr. Olthoff. We appreciate the time.
My son goes to high school, too.
Thank you. Yep. I think I'd respond a couple times to that, just as the board knows, and so our community is well aware of this. This is Iowa code. You can't overspend your max authorized budget. And I know the board knows that. If you overspend your max authorized budget, the state will come in and shut you down. So when we look at our GAAP expenditures and our budgeting expenses as well as our cash, we know that there are going to be some expenditures year to year that might come in with our cash, and that's what we did last time with some of our expenditures to be able to make sure that we're budgeting ahead and budgeting prudently. We have gone to Chicago to have our rating. We are AA minus rating, which is a really high rating for school districts, and it's based upon the fact that we are fiscally responsible, we manage our budget extremely well, and we're very fiscally conservative as a district. So I think that's important to note that, again, we are bound by Iowa code as what we can have and claim as far as revenues, what we can do for expenses, and year to year. That's something that we watch extremely carefully. Otherwise, the state will come in and has the authority to shut down districts. They've done that before, and that is something that we know as a district we would never, ever allow or have come to fruition.
Thank you. Mr. Justice.
Bob Justice, 409 Spruce Hills Drive, Cedar Falls. I am a proud graduate of the Cedar Falls High School. The first thing I want to do is to thank each and every one of you and those who sat in these chairs before you for what you have done so far with the facilities for our kids. The elementary schools in terrific shape. 2 great junior high schools. A high school that is in need, desperately in need. I went to Cedar Heights, the first Cedar Heights, Pete Junior High, Cedar Falls High School. I have a daughter who lives here, 3 grandkids, daughter and son-in-law. They're not moving. They love, like me, they love Cedar Falls. She went through Orchard Hill, Pete, and Cedar Falls High School. I'm worried about the facility that my grandsons, 9 and 11, and my granddaughter, 10 months, what are they going to have as a high school? Is it going to be a high school that is outdated? Is it going to be a high school that is in disrepair? It's been patched and patched and patched. Is it going to be a high school that is safe? Safe. Safety in schools. Pretty important right now. My time, I know, is about to expire. I haven't even talked about the great information in this, and I've read it several times. Here's my question. I don't think that it's a question of can we afford it. The question is, in my head, can we afford not to do it? I fully support what you're doing, and I'm telling all my friends just that. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Winter.
Good evening. Floyd Winter. I live at 607 Shooting Star Way, and I've been a resident of Cedar Falls for a long time. In 1973, I moved here to become the principal of Cedar Falls High School. I had a great experience in my interviewing process with teaching staff, faculty, Board of Education, community members, and this was a place for me. Little did I understand that there were going to be an additional 500 students to the already 1,000 students that would be entering the halls at Cedar Falls High School in 1973. I kind of had that in the back of my head. It was going to be a lot. I'd come from a high school with about 400 students in it and about 50 acres of land. And I thought this is the way everything is. It really wasn't. It was a great experience. I enjoyed my years tremendously at Cedar Falls High School. Terrific faculty and staff. Teaching and learning was utmost in their minds, and parent support was unbelievable. The only thing that was a drawback were the extremely crowded conditions at Cedar Falls High School, a building that the first spade of dirt was turned in 1950. First class was 1953 to 54, consisting of 100 students. Parking was not a problem. Students didn't drive cars at the time. A few years later, when I became principal, they were not only driving one car, they were driving home and getting another vehicle. And that residential neighborhood really has had a terrific impact on what we were doing with our programming on that limited 13 acres of land. Since then, 4 acres have been added to it. But it was always a challenge. It still is a challenge today, a great challenge. The original core of the building was the first unit completed of that building. From that time on, you know that there have been several additions, one way or another, at either side of the building. In fact, when I came in '73, there was construction going on in the south end and the north end at the same time. We had one entry and one exit with all those kids. My greatest challenge was to find space for every one of those classes and every one of those students, with 30 to 35. And that core of that building was built to last. It was concrete walls, still consists of those concrete walls, no flexibility whatsoever, and there have not been flexible units in that core of the building. The core I'm talking about is today's terms is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and it's still there. We've produced outstanding students. The class of 1983, for example, had 6 graduates from the University of Iowa Medical School 7 years later. Only time that's ever happened in checking with the University of Iowa Medical School. Under those conditions, they were able to produce outstanding students. And really kudos and congratulations and thanks to every staff member who really was a part of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
As
Winter.
you know, I'm here to support this bond issue. We can do nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Manning.
Good evening. My name is Bob Manning. I live at 2908 West 3rd Street, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I'm a Cedar Valley resident all my life, other than the 4.5 years it took me to get a 4-year education at Iowa State. I'm here because I've always been supportive of everything positive in the Cedar Valley. And what we've seen with the Aldridge School and the growth in housing around there has been tremendous. For us to continue to grow, we need to provide the first thing that people say when they consider moving to Cedar Falls, tell me about your schools. And we have a lot of pluses in that arena, except for the conditions at Cedar Falls High School now. So we vastly support what you're doing. I'm pleased that one of the earlier speakers could be less argumentative than we've seen him before, and I appreciate when we can have some positive person-to-person dialogue like that. The voting in June may be tight, but the need is there, and we hope that it passes this time. And we are excited to see what's going on. We happen to be a part of the coalition that went to Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago to speak about the Cedar Valley with our congressional staffers and representatives. And everyone stepped up and said, we need more people. And one of the things that will attract people is proper education facilities. Right now in the Home Builders Association in Blackhawk County and the Cedar Valley, we're underbuilding by 100 houses a year what the need is compared to the demand. And the reason that it's being, we're struggling on that is there's not enough skilled workers to build the houses that are in demand. If we have more skilled workers, and we're working on some programs on that we think are going to be very exciting in the future, but we need the growth of housing is limited by the amount of supply of labor that we have. It's a supply and demand issue that is surprising to many, that's one of the reasons we're not building more. And people want to come here. We see in the state of Iowa that people like to come to the area where they have a university, and that makes this area very popular. And fiscally, the taxes, they're going to adjust somewhat, but for whatever range property houses we have, it's not much to see that this community can continue to grow and be supportive of what you're all doing. So we pat you on the back for what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say just a couple comments on that too, and it's something that I think it's important to know. We've talked a lot here at the board table now for multiple months, multiple public presentations, and one of the things that we've found through our research is 91% of homeowners that move into a community, one of the first things they consider and ask about is the quality of schools. They want to know, are the school systems going to provide for their families what they know is most important, is that educational quality. We're very fortunate. We have a tremendous school system here in Cedar Falls, but we also have heard from public speakers, as well as we've heard through other conversations from some of our principals, that especially at the high school level, we are having some employers as well as staff, potential staff members, when they come and they tour the facility, say, we know the educational quality, rock solid. We know that that's something that we're going to take great pride in, but we're nervous about the facilities. Could be because of the fact that it's had 13 additions onto the building. It could be the fact that some students have to walk multiple blocks, sometimes through snow banks and snow drifts, sometimes due to the fact that we have 14 to 16 doors that are open throughout the day. But we've had some of those potential employees as well as parents say, the facility is what holds us from moving in. And that's a concern, because the facility needs to match that level of expectation. And one of the speakers talked about the inflexibility. As we look at our new facilities, the need to be able to have that focus on the 4 C's, the creativity, the critical thinking, really those project-based learning opportunities, you can't do that in an industrial age building that was designed for seats and rows with 30 to 35 kids crammed into a space. So we understand that this is something that we are excited about, but also we also understand without rock-solid, great school system, sustainable communities, and the research around sustainable communities show you won't grow as a region. And that is something that, as an investment and a continued investment into the facilities and the infrastructure that we know is important and our community knows is important, that will allow us future growth well into the future.
Thank you. At this time, Denny, we're going to take an intermission. Living on the edge, are you? Marika, would you like to come up to the mic and give your student board report? Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I feel like I'm stretching. Okay. At the high school, we just had prom this past weekend with the theme A Night at the Gala. And students have also been completing AP exams this past week. Last Friday, there was a school blood drive through LifeServe Blood Center with over 60 donors signed up. The seniors' honors convocation also occurred on May 7th, which recognized seniors for their academic efforts throughout high school. And there will also be a walkout on May 17th at 11:17 a.m. to raise awareness for mental health issues.
And Marika, you did a wonderful job presiding over those opportunities at the high school with our awards banquets and certainly represented the student body extremely well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to present you with this certificate of appreciation. It says this certificate is awarded to Marika Yang in grateful appreciation and recognition for your faithful service as a student member of the Cedar Falls Board of Education by the Cedar Falls Community Schools. So I want to thank you for your loyalty and just for your information that you give to us. And we can't wait for you to come back and share your stories about what that next step is for you in your life. And just stay in touch with us because we want to hear what you're doing. And we're very proud of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And next on the agenda is School Board Appreciation Month. This month of May is annually the School Appreciation Month across the state of Iowa, and there are certificates at each of the location spots at the board table, and we just want to say thank you for your hard work, dedication. Many people don't understand the time, the focus, as well as the attention to really ensuring kind of that laser-like focus on student achievement, student learning that each of you provide. So thank you for your leadership. Most people don't understand this is completely volunteer in nature. Sometimes they think that you are paid a great deal of money to provide your leadership to our district, and it's not. And certainly the dedication that each of you provide, we can't say enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Janelle for the newsletter.
Good evening. Yeah, we have lots to cover tonight in regards to the communications report. So we'll have that brought up real quick. First thing we're going to talk about is the district was awarded the John Milton Overman Business and Industry Award for Education Bester for Aldrich Elementary. So a big thank you to the city for that award, and then to the people of Cedar Falls really for allowing us to be able to do that. You'll see pictured here we had Susie Hines, board member, Joyce Coyle, board president, Dan Conrad, Kim Cross, Denise Aldrich, teacher at Aldrich, Dr. Petit, and Pam Ziegler were all there to accept that award. Also wanted to mention Astoria Chow was chosen as a 2019 U.S. Presidential Scholar, and she was just one of 161 students from across the country to receive that honor, so a big congratulations to her. The Endeavor Recognition Project, every spring they announce winners, and it's recognize student, staff, and then school volunteers throughout the Black Hawk County public and private high schools that make outstanding contributions. The ceremony was held in April, and for the high school, the winners were Jack Campbell as the student winner, the Environmental Awareness Team for the student group, and Jason Lang is that staff sponsor, Pam McDowell as the staff member, and Lindsay Zimmerman as teacher. So congratulations to all of them. And then we also wanted to mention Lisa Klinsky, the high school art teacher, was awarded the Mix 93.5 Teacher of the Week. And I really wanted to highlight this because unfortunately our high school teachers aren't always recognized for some of these fun awards. But I think what the nomination was actually written by a student. And I just wanted to say a few things on that. But the student said that Mrs. Klinsky goes above and beyond for her students. Not only does she teach art, but she teaches many life lessons. She makes the classroom feel like a home away from home. She's a wonderful mentor, not only in the works of art, but in guiding her students in the walk of life. So congratulations to Lisa Klinsky, and especially it's so nice for her to have that nomination by a student. And then our awards continue on. For Kenton Swartley was named by the Cedar Falls Lions Club the Outstanding Educator. He's been a teacher in our school district for quite some time, and then the past 2 years has been our district STEM facilitator, as well as the coach for the robotics competition team. And his nomination was also written by a student. And it was, some of the things she said was, he's there for us every step of the way, but he puts students in charge of our own outcomes for everything we do. Student leaders, and he directs our progress. And then at the end she says, he has caused a STEM revolution in our schools, which I think is a very telling thing about Mr. Swartley and what he's really done for our district. So Megan Pesley was the student that, a senior on the robotics team that submitted that nomination. So we really wanted to give a congratulations and recognition to Mr. Swartley. Also wanted to thank the Target Corporation. They awarded a grant to the Cedar Falls Police Department that was used for their annual reading program. They used that grant money to purchase a book for every kindergarten student, and you'll see here then the police officers actually go into every kindergarten classroom, and for us, that's quite a few classrooms across the district, and they read to each of those students and then talk to them about safety and really kind of develop a good relationship with those students, and it's a great program that's been happening for quite some time for us in the district. So thank you to Target and the Cedar Falls Police Department. This is just a couple things I wanted to highlight as far as what's been posted on social media. This is Mrs. Schrock's fourth graders. They were practicing for a mystery Skype today. And this is actually where a classroom in a building connects with a classroom in another location in the country. The students in our classroom do not know where the students in the other classroom is located, but they have to work via Skype, via video, and then they give each other clues, and then they have to do some research, and then they go back and forth trying to figure out where each other is. So it's a really neat program that they do, and our instructional coaches are a big part of that, of connecting some of those classrooms. This real quick was some students being led through a U.S. regions with Google Expeditions, and this was being done at Southdale. This is another fun thing we have going on in many of our schools is our Farm to School program. This was last week at Hanson, and the lower elementary students tried rhubarb with honey. And I believe that was a great experience for many of them. And this was actually in a second grade classroom there, and it's that Farm to School program is run by many volunteers in our schools. And this is also just shows at Pete Junior High, some of them doing some of the STEM projects with the Project Lead the Way curriculum. These are some Hanson fifth graders. They wrote argumentative essays on various topics, sports, zoos, using plastic water bottles, and then they had to choose what they would be presenting their argumentative essay in front of the green screen, so then they would have this whole video for part of their argumentative essay. I have a fifth grader myself that was very excited about getting to do that project. And this was a great activity. Some Holmes and ninth graders actually went to kindergarten class and did a science experiment. And you can see the little lab coats all those students are wearing and all those smiling faces. Great experience for all of them. Also wanted to mention at the high school level, our 4A All-State Jazz Rehearsal. We had 3 students that participated in the All-State Jazz concert, and this was, they actually got to rehearse at the Johnston High School and in their new auditorium. This Wednesday will be our CAPS Innovation Celebration, held out at Central Rivers AEA starting at 5:30, and this is when all of our CAPS students will be presenting all their projects from this past semester. I want to thank Viking Pump, Hawkeye, and UNI for helping sponsor the event. And we also wanted to mention if you'd like to come, you can really just show up, otherwise you can let myself know that you'd like to attend as we're taking RSVPs. But this will be all 4 of our strands: business communication design, manufacturing, engineering, technology, education and training, and then the medical and health services will all be presenting their projects. We also wanted to announce some information based on the school bond referendum on June 25th. This is all information from the election office. The polls are going to be open that day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's Tuesday, June 25th vote date. And the voters are those that reside within the Cedar Falls Community School District. Of course, there are some people that have physical addresses that may be in other communities, but actually reside within the Cedar Falls Community School District. And then they're actually going to be utilizing vote centers for this special election. And those are polling locations that combine multiple precincts. So the voting will be done at 5 locations across Cedar Falls. They're listed there: St. John Lutheran Church, Bethlehem Lutheran Church, Church of Christ, Cedar Heights Community Presbyterian Church, and then Trinity Bible. And then any voter in the Cedar Falls district can vote at any of those 5 locations. So you don't have to go to a specific precinct. But this is definitely new for us and new for our voters, so we really wanted to share that information out so people would be aware of it. We also were made aware that the absentee ballots will be available June 10th. They'll be mailed that day, and then that is when you can start voting in person at the courthouse and on the 2nd floor where the election office is. And you can vote there 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday through that Monday, June 24th. And they also are sharing that the last day to pre-register at the election office for this election is June 14th before 5 p.m. But on election day, you can still go to that precinct. You'll just need to have all the proof of residency and identity to be able to vote and register the day of, which is some new regulations. But if anyone does have questions, they can definitely call the election office or email them if they have any issues or concerns about that. Also just wanted to have everyone mark their calendars. We have a couple things coming up. Pat Mitchell golf outing on June 27th, the Sturgis Falls Half Marathon 5K, June 30th, and we're even looking to next year. Our fall sports kickoff will be Tuesday, August 20th. And that Tiger Pride magazine is now out and has been in mailboxes. It's also posted online, so if anyone would like to go online to look at it and read it, you can get it from our main homepage, cedarfallschools.org. There is all of our social media to catch up on everything that's going on. And I also wanted to share real quick, we're going to watch what is our most recent video that we've been had a part of that'll be running on CFU and on Channel 7 as a PSA.
Very nice, Janelle. Thank you. Any questions for Janelle? Thank you. Moving on now to item E on the agenda, the Secretary's financial report. Janelle.
Okay, if we could pull up the presentation, please. Okay, we're going to be looking at April. As of April, for their general fund, we have revenues of $13,367,000 and our expenditures of $7,016,000 with a total ending balance of $10,972,000. For our management fund, we have revenues of $223,000, our expenditures of $8,800 for a total fund balance of $1,004,000. For our capital projects fund, we had revenues of $557, which of course is our interest. We have expenditures of $43,418 with a fund balance of $271,621, which again, we will be closing that fund out here shortly. For our save, we have revenues of $442,000. We have expenditures of $598,000. We have our transfer out to our sinking fund of $218,000, which leaves a fund balance of $7,216,000. As a reminder, we have a restricted of $995,000, which leaves an unrestricted balance of $6,221,000. For our PEPL, we have revenues of $1.2 million, our expenditures of $51,000, for a total of $4,630,000. For our debt service, again, we had revenues of $898,000. We had the transfer in from our save of $218,000. We had no expenditures. As a reminder, expenditures are twice a year, and which leaves our ending balance of $4,037,000. For our student activity, we had revenues of $52,000, expenditures of $57,000, for an ending balance of $536,000. For our trust and agency funds, we had revenues of $6,200. We had expenditures of $8,600 for an ending balance of $264,000. For our enterprise fund, we had revenues of $210,000, expenditures of $214,000 for an ending balance of $741,000. For our coffee shop, we had revenues of $1,661, expenditures of $1,582 for an ending balance of $6,535. And for our River Hills Agency Fund, we had revenues of $0. We had expenditures of $624,000 with a remaining balance of $85,000. As a reminder, these are quarterly payments and they are flow through to the Central Rivers AEA. Is there any questions this evening?
Any questions for Janelle? Hearing none, then we'll put the Secretary's financial report on file for audit. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Moving on now to item F, the receipt and filing of a notice and recommendation to terminate employment contract.
Yeah, so this is kind of a process delineated in Iowa Code, so I'm just going to read a statement. We have given notice for a recommendation to terminate a contract as required by Iowa Code Chapter 279 with the intent to offer a part-time contract in return. The employee is aware of this intention. As permitted by Iowa Code, the individual has exercised the right to request a private hearing before the board. Tonight, we are taking the step number 2 in this process, which will be my presentation to the board president of a sealed document containing the written recommendation. The board secretary then takes the possession of the sealed document and proceeds with scheduling the hearing. There is no board action to be taken at this phase in the process. The name of the teacher and additional details are intentionally withheld from the board at this phase to ensure that due process and confidentiality rights of the employee are observed. So no action. This is simply one step in a process and something that is always a step within Iowa Code 279 that's a little bit confusing because we can't share process or names, but that all comes to fruition as we go through this phase in these steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on now to item G on the agenda, the superintendent's report.
Yes, just a couple different items. Service recognition is Tuesday, May 21st at 4:30 p.m., at Pheasant Ridge. Commencement, May 26th, and we know we have 2 board representatives that will be there, and we appreciate Jeff Hassman and Joyce Coyle being there to represent the board and hand out those diplomas. The board retreat is June 12th at 9:30 to noon on that Wednesday. We do have a bond presentation to be able to give to, just some updates that I wanted to share as we do each meeting, just to kind of continue with the updates. And again, there are so many different components of this process that we have shared with the board, have talked through very diligently, have gone through the different aspects of the research for looking at the current high school and the feasibility, as well as other sites. And certainly, as we have worked with multiple consultants, the best pathway forward as we've looked at this is to both fiscally, for safety, for purposes, is looking at that new high school building. We have gone through then for recently an opportunity to spend 2 days touring different buildings, not only in Des Moines, but down in the Kansas City area. And this is a picture of the new Johnston High School that board members have toured. This is the exterior. This is the second year that they've been open. Next slide, again, just shows the interior of that cafeteria, that common space at the Johnston Community School District. That certainly is that welcoming, inviting, invigorating, kind of, you just feel excited and creative when you walk into those spaces. So we visited Johnston, Ankeny Centennial, as well as the Waukee Wicks building, or their Apex building. But then as we went down to Kansas City, we visited these 3 buildings. Olathe West High School, which is in their 2nd year, Blue Valley Southwest High School, which I believe was in their 10th year, then the Blue Valley Caps building. There were 13 of us that went down there. I think it was really exciting just to see the opportunities and how they set up spaces that maximize effectiveness and efficiency, but also to focus on student learning, activity, project approaches, and hands-on learning opportunities. I think it's really interesting when you look at some of those investments in those districts and in those buildings. As we went not only to Des Moines in that metro area, but Kansas City, you can see how that stems growth, and certainly what we talked about before. When families look at moving into a community, one of the first things they look at is the quality of the school district. And you can tell that investments in these districts certainly have added in additional residential growth, additional business growth around those areas, similar to what we've seen at Aldrich Elementary, which I think is extremely exciting. Next slide. So this leads back to all the discussions that we've had and conversations we've had. As we've looked at redeveloping and expanding that existing high school, when you look at a apples-to-apples comparison, adding in acreage around that site to be able to bring us up to something that's equivalent with what a new building can provide is 118% of the cost of a new building. So it becomes cost prohibitive to even look at that new site or to look at that current building. As we heard earlier ago, the first shovel of dirt was done in 1950. So we know that was at a time where the efficiency and effectiveness necessarily of the construction and or the opportunities educationally just aren't measured to today's standards. Then you look at the new high school project, and we know that the project cost is about $112 million. Construction cost is 86, and that is the building itself, the infrastructure, the differences in the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and all the things that go into the building. I think it's important to note that we are asking for a $69.9 million general obligation bond. The difference between the project cost and the bond, as we've talked about multiple different times, comes from the recently extended 1-cent sales tax that's been extended through the legislature. Factored at a conservative mark with no student enrollment growth, which we know we're scheduled to grow roughly 1,000 students in the next 10 years, similar to the 1,000 students we've grown in the past 10 years, as well as at the current level of funding, which we know there's escalation of cost built or revenues built into those projections, but we are considering that revenue as a very static amount based on this year's revenue. So very exciting that, again, comparatively, looking at other districts, if you go to the next slide, we know the $69.9 million of we're asking our community to invest into a new building is much less than what other districts have done recently. Ames is actually replacing a high school that is a little bit newer than our current high school, and they passed a $110 million general obligation bond to have a building of $122 million open in 2022. Waukee is just passed $117 million general obligation bond to open up a second high school that's going to cost $117 million. So when we compare, in the next slide, as we look a little bit deeper, we are saying that we can ask our community for $69.9 million, roughly a 60-40 split with the revenue of the 1-cent sales tax, to be able to invest in the next 50 to 70 years in a building that is going to be much more fiscally sound, educationally appropriate, but also an opportunity to have future expansion as we continue to grow as a school district. So that always compares and raises the question, well, how do we know you won't build a Taj Mahal? It's very easy to benchmark regionally, statewide, nationally, to find out what is the square foot per student, what is the average cost per square foot, and we know we want to be someplace right in that center. We want to be kind of a spot that's going to allow us to have growth as we look at the future, to be able to expand a site potentially as needed, but also something that when we look back 15, 20, 30 years from now, we also know that we don't regret moving forward in a way that's sized the right and appropriate manner and educationally sound to provide that flexibility well into the future. So it's something that we know it's very easy to find that spot that's going to make sense for us as a community school district, to be able to make sense for us as a community as we continue to grow and make sense of that investment well into the future. The next slide then goes into the projections and the sales tax for our school district. We know that this is a two-ballot question. The first question is to ask for a $69.9 million bond sale. We know a $69.9 million bond sale is about a $2.30 increase for overall levy rate. As you look at the previous 10-year assessed value increase growth in our community, as well as the previous 5-year, we project that we will continue to grow as a community because of the sound investment in infrastructure, Cedar Falls utilities, families wanting to move here because of the high-quality schools. The second question then really stems on that $69.9 million. What does that $2.30 look like as far as out-of-pocket expense? We know that on an $100,000 assessed home, that $2.30 added into the on the tax levy rate would be about $10.70 per month for those assessed homes. So we know that as we look at the next slide then, we are currently, of the largest 25 districts, the third lowest with our overall assessed levy rate. And that is due to the fact that, again, we're fiscally conservative, we continue to grow as a community, we continue to invest in the infrastructure, and with those other districts across the bottom, you will see several of them that have recently passed a school levy rate because of their continued growth, because of their continued investment in the school district. With this investment into a new high school, it puts us about average of those largest 25 school districts. So we know overall our levy rate is still going to be less than many, many growing and larger districts in Iowa, but we also know that it continues to decrease over time over those 20 years of that bond. And that previous slide showed that a little bit more specifically, that year number one, it's about $10.77 per month. Over the course of the 20 years, it almost goes down in half because of the assessed valuation growth across our community. So a two-bond question, number one, 69.9, and then that drives the amount of levy rate that we would have, which would be about $2.30. Next slide. We encourage people to go to our website. There's a wealth of information there. Somebody that might be tuning in for the very first time, the conversations, the dialogue that we've been having over the last multiple months about this investment and the importance of this investment as we look educationally, as we look at economic development, as we look at just growing as a community is something that the website does a good job of capturing and showing some of those informations, the comparisons, to make sure that people have the factual information at their fingertips. Questions?
Yes.
I just have a comment. Some of the questions that we heard in the beginning, or comments that we heard, had to do with fiscal responsibility, and you did a really good job there of just kind of summarizing where we are in terms of making a decision to build a new school rather than renovate, and location of a new school. But I think it's also important to think about our existing structure and the functionality of it for the students who are there currently. I think about an analogy of having a car that you need to get you where you need to go, but as a car ages, when do you stop investing in that car for repairs and everything, as opposed to getting a new car, right? You still need it to service you, but when does it become more expensive to operate that car than it does to get a new car? Our building, we need to make sure that it's working, that it's safe, that it's effective for the learning needs of our students that are there today, right now. And the longer we put this off, the more we're going to have to invest in a building that is inadequate for what we hope for our students in terms of their opportunities. So I think that's an important thing. And the other part of that you've talked about before is every year that we wait on this bond, the expense becomes greater. And so as fiscal agents, this is something that we're considering very seriously as part of the equation.
Yes, it's $3.3 million per year just because of the inflationary value and the cost of waiting. So there is a cost to doing nothing. So it's about $1 million per quarter, and that adds up significantly.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Pattee? Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or comments from board members?
To double check, do we have another May meeting?
We do not,
Okay.
no. So I'll send out dates based on future meetings that we have, just to make sure that everybody has those on their calendars.
Great, thanks.
Good question, Susie. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Cedar Falls Board of Education enter into closed session to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property or reduce the price the governmental body would receive for that property. The minutes and the audio recording of a session closed under this paragraph shall be available for public examination when the transaction discussed is completed under 2011 Iowa Code 21.51J.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second?
It's been seconded by Susie. This will be a roll call vote.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Hassman?
Yes.
Ms. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Lance?
Yes.
Ms. Leeper?
Yes.
Mr. Orvis?
Yes.
Ms. Wolpert?
Yes.
Thank you. We will go into closed session. There'll be no action taken when we come out of closed session. Thank you. Oh, Janelle would like
we get
us
a picture?
us to step around and have a picture.